Welcome to Inland Insight with IECN, hosted by Manny Sandoval and Denise Berver. What's up, Inland Empire? Manny Sandoval here with Inland Empire Community News. This is Inland Insight with IECN.
I'm Denise Berver.
And today we are focused all on the local inland economy as well as the job market. And we have two special guests here, which is Matthew Mena from IEGO, as well, who is the Senior Director, as well as Esmeralda Vasquez, who is the Executive Director of the Inland Empire Labor Institute. And we appreciate you guys coming in and shedding some light on the economy and the job market in our area.
Awesome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So when it comes to, we'll start off with IEGO. What is it exactly that you guys do? And what do you guys, in terms of information, provide the community?
Yeah. So for IEGO, Inland Economic Growth and Opportunity, it actually started in 2017 through a Brookings study. So a lot of the regional leaders back then got together and really realized that we had some really big issues as far as our growth trajectory. As we all know, there's some things that have happened through the years that kind of stalled the growth of IEGO. But when I took on this role, we were kind of targeted to make sure that we were kind of pushing this agenda forward. So one of those big roles that we did to start, one of my first projects was actually partnering with ESME, with California Jobs First. And the Brookings study is almost exactly identical to what we had to accomplish for California Jobs First moving forward, because we were one of the pilots for what the state legislature actually created, and at that time was the Community Economic Resilience Fund, changed over to California Jobs First.
Gotcha.
And so we play a huge role in regional economic development, looking at what types of industries we're competitive in. So for instance, for us, we're targeting tradable sectors because those are sectors that we can actually have a say in how they grow. Because whereas locally serving sectors really grow off of that tradable sector, which is we're creating something here and we're transporting it out. We're trading it. And so we're targeting advanced manufacturing, really the materials, so like metals, plastics, and really figuring out how we can grow that. The reason why that's important is because that's the critical piece to everything else that we're producing in California. So when we're thinking about defense manufacturing, when we're thinking about aerospace, electric vehicles, all of those actually have to feed off of manufacturers that are here in our region. The next is sustainable technology or clean technology. Our region, this technology is going to be implemented here because of our logistics. Or the density of logistics facilities. So all of that's we're going to be affected by it, right? But the thought process is we have manufacturers. We also have, a level 1 research facility at UCR, and they're specializing in clean technology, right? So really figuring out how we can grow that sector, and through some of the local leaders, we actually do have a growing sector where we have vehicle manufacturing here in the Inland Empire. And then the last is cybersecurity. So right now we're sitting in San Bernardino. Right up the road is one of the top cybersecurity training programs in the country. And so all of those are really what we're kind of targeting to help grow the economy and stimulate jobs. And we'll probably talk about it a little later, but all of that's based off of community support and community input. The second kind of big project that we do is the Centers of Excellence. So for every community college that wants to build out a CTE program, they actually have to go and get research done from the Centers of Excellence. We have to say, this is a great, technical program to start. And so we provide that data to all 12 community colleges in the region. And then the last kind of tier that we do is just the coordinating effort, right? Because there's a lot of really good actors here in the region. And actually Esme's organization does this too. We're kind of a backbone organizer for a lot of the sectors that we're kind of pushing forward to make sure that the activities that all these other organizations are doing is coordinated. And we have seen the lack of coordination in terms of, and it's been detrimental to the region in many ways, but some of those is on federal funding or state funding when we're going after grants. So instead of competing for grants, we're trying to organize ourselves under whichever organization. Like if IEGO doesn't actually take the lead or has their name on the placard on who's important in this, that's fine. But we're happy in the coordination effort of a lot of these things.
Wow. So you guys do a lot, obviously, but one of my favorite things is the report that you guys send out. Is that monthly or quarterly?
Monthly.
Monthly. Gotcha. And where can people sign up for that at?
So you can sign up for that on our website, inland or IEGOcollaborative.com. So through the Centers of Excellence, we actually have that data. So labor market information. The federal government produces a labor market report. I'm sure a lot of people, it's been top of mind on the news lately. So federal government, labor market, they produce a labor market report for the entire country. We see it on CNN, we see it on MSNBC, we see it on Fox News. And then the state actually produces their own report. What we do is we take that report and that data and we actually make it edible. We make it more visible for the Inland Empire, so residents here can actually know what's going on as far as the labor market goes, and that's a huge indicator on a lot of things. On the federal side, they actually we target our interest rates based off of the labor market information. So if we saw over the past 4 years, the Fed didn't lower interest rates because we were actually growing jobs, right? So these are all things that affect not just job seekers, but also people who are looking at real estate development. All sorts of things are affected by this information. And so we produce that monthly, and it's an exciting kind of time to be part of that. With it's not just the run of the mill. We get to see what's happening on the federal side too.
So basically, you take the entire report and break it down to what applies to the Inland Empire specifically.
Exactly.
So you address the unique challenges and the issues specific to this area.
Yeah.
And thanks for breaking that down, Esme. We'll head on over to you with the Inland Empire Labor Institute. So what is it that you guys specifically do for our region?
Yeah, what is your mission and your goals?
Oh, I don't want to oversimplify it. But essentially...
Well, you can't after Matt didn't oversimplify
it. So the Inland Empire Labor Institute was actually started back in the 90s through the Inland Empire Labor Council, right? The AFL-CIO. So that is our program partner, representing over 90 union affiliates and over 400,000 workers here in the IE. We actually have about our region, Riverside, San Bernardino, kind of the Ontario region, we have about a little over 15% of union represented workers here. And then we have about 1.5 million workers here, like from the state, right? Like if we look at those numbers. So that's a lot of working class people, working families. And so essentially our mission was started back in the 90s. So it was the Riverside and San Bernardino counties Union Services Agency. And it was just that. It was to provide services to our working families and workers, right? Whether it be food drives, whether it be, just job support, technical assistance support, etc. It was then reimagined back in like 2018. Ricardo Cisneros, actually the executive secretary treasurer for the Inland Empire Labor Council, AFL-CIO, he sat down with a lot of our union leaders here in the area. And then the question was asked, like, what are the needs, right? What is it that you all truly want or need? What do your members need, right? What do our families need to thrive, etc., right? And so out of that was born and reimagined as the Inland Empire Labor Institute. So we were set up, and our mission is essentially to establish a worker-centered economy where every IE resident has, I want to say, equitable opportunity, not equal opportunity, right? Because we need to pay attention to the inequities that currently exist in the economy and in the job market. And what we did was to say, okay, we want to create this worker-centered economy. We want to make sure that everyone has the tools, the skills, and their basic needs met so that they're able to thrive, right? And that looks like having a family sustaining, mortgage sustaining wage, right? That means having health benefits. Right. That means having, why not have retirement savings, right?
Which is really also just basics too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, right. Where we look at those things as like, I think for us, it might come as like, well, duh, like I want that, right?
Right.
But people had to fight for these things. People had to fight for a day off for the weekend. People had to fight for, hey, Christmas is coming around and I want to be with my families, right? People today are still fighting that in our region.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're also fighting for better working conditions.
Right, so this must be ever changing because there's always new needs that are popping up in 100%. The region based on the economy and just our location and everything.
And the sectors, right? So Matt touched on the sectors. So out of all of that, we're like, okay, where do we need to be at the table in order to make these things happen for our workers? And that looks like economic and workforce development, right? That looks like being at the table with these folks, these developers, these local leaders, right, that are making these decisions, that are doing community economic development without community at the center, without people at the center. Because at the end of the day, a company, an organization will only be successful if their workers are taken care of, right? Like if you look at it at, you know, like, okay, we understand you have a bottom line, but workers also have a bottom line, right? And so it's like if we can kind of marry the two and kind of find a common ground, a healthy common ground, I think we will see a very different thriving economy, a society here in our region where why not have a park or a school near my house rather than a warehouse?
Yeah.
Right? Why not bring healthy advanced manufacturing opportunities, cybersecurity opportunities, bigger companies that pay well, you know, to this region? Like, why are we limited and put in this box with only certain sectors? Like, I feel like some decisions have been made where folks have put all of their eggs in one basket, right? And now we see that industry or that sector declining, right? We had a meeting with the city of Riverside, the Economic Development Department, and they said a stat that really stood out to me. It was 60% of logistics jobs will be done or automated, you know, by 2035.
Which is not that far away.
And where does that leave people?
Right. And it's one of the still largest sectors in our region. So it's like what we're trying to do, I think, with California Jobs First and what the state set out to do, right, especially after COVID. They started this community economic resilience fund, right? And that was SURF, now California Jobs First, to emphasize job creation, to emphasize the need for industry, yes. The need for being open for business, yes. But also the need to center people, to center workers, to center community. To say, look, yes, you guys can do what we need to do. You guys can thrive. You guys can make your money, but also uplift the community, right? We all want the same thing at the end of the day. And I think we can really have it all. I think we just need to be able to set some ego and the status quo aside and really move forward. So with the Labor Institute, all in all, like with this is, we're really trying to fight for that. We're really trying to move that forward and really change the narrative.
Got it.
Right, because the initiatives that you're talking about extend far past the actual workplace.
Right.
These are community initiatives and they affect a much larger area.
Right, 100%. And that comes with just creating pathways. You know, we talk about apprenticeships. We talk about pre-apprenticeship programs. We talk about CTE programs. We talk about all of these things. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build a sustainable ecosystem that actually leads somewhere for someone. Right? It's about closing that loop. And it's about saying, okay, yes, there is this pathway for you. You can follow it. But at the end, do you have employment? And not only employment, but what type of employment? Do you have quality work? Like, do you have this sense of belonging that you're actually making a difference or you're being impactful, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that is what we're trying to shift. Yes, the narrative, but we're also trying to create these sustainable pathways in these sectors alongside IEGO, where everyone can actually have opportunity and know that if I'm a student here in the IE, I have the ability to make the money to live the life that I want for me and my family, right? Without necessarily pursuing the traditional college pathway, right? Because not everyone goes to college. Right. Or even after college, I was a college grad and I didn't necessarily, land where I thought I would be, Right. And so it's like all of these things that have been traditionally taught for decades, it's like we're trying to shift that and maybe stir that up a little, and maybe, not everyone might be open to that, but we're hoping to actually open those doors and open those conversations at least to provide these pathway technical assistance, capacity building resources to community and workers and educators and business leaders, etc. Like, we can put, like, when Matt talked about the coordination, right? It's really about being that convener and really bringing people together and saying, like, okay, how can we really shift this, right? And moving away from the silos or moving away from the cliques that currently exist.
Yeah, so I think like a critical role that I've seen, because we work together all the time, unfortunately for you. For a lot of what I see is, instead of having the labor conversation be conflict oriented, starting it at the very beginning of these things. And so instead of these businesses, employers having to add that into the equation after they've already gotten, their loans, all sorts of things when you start a business.
Right.
Having that conversation at the very beginning and having that knowledge as you're starting to build out a budget to start a business or to move into the region, which is critical, right? So you have, I don't think that there should be a difference between, pro-business and pro-community. Which when I first started IEGO, I felt like that was a conversation that I had to bridge. It's all about what's good for the region. What do we create for a thriving region? And everything that, Esme's talking about, innovation only happens when, like, your needs are actually met. Right. And so when we have a residents that are just trying to make ends meet, like for me, I would never think of going and starting a business ever, right? Because I don't have a backing for that. Like, my family couldn't be like, oh yeah, you're fine. We'll pay for all that stuff. That's not something that most people in the Inland Empire don't have. And so when you have all those benefits, all that support system around, that's when you can actually start thriving and start being creative and start building out technology or doing whatever you want to do, which is important for us to actually build on those sectors that I'm talking about.
So how do you feel that the work that you're doing is helping to shift that narrative and that mindset between community-driven versus business-driven?
You want to go first?
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah. I know this is going to be good.
So I think it shifts because we're doing things that I feel like have never been done before. And I say that because people actually tell us, like, oh, we've never done this before. And these are people that have been in their roles for many years, well-seasoned professionals and leaders here. And for us, like, I'm going to use this example of, and I don't know if you share the sentiment, but like, we had a lunch with a company that's international and it's coming here to our region. And they selected one of our local cities to set up shop. And for a company to do that, it's a very big decision, right? But I think what Matt was able to do and what I was able to do is we were able to, like how he's saying, bridge that gap between labor and the company to say, hey, you guys need to talk because labor can bring the skills and the training that you need for your company to be successful for your workers. We can get you those folks right away. Like, you can just tell us what you need. We can tailor the curriculum. We could tailor that and set, like, have some off costs, like, help save you money at the end of the day. And, you can also be successful. So I think for us, when I talk to some people, that's not really happening, or it is happening, but there's a lot of, not conflict necessarily, but there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that need to be had before that happens, right? And we were able to do it, I think, very smoothly to where I feel like relationship building was a part of that as well. So that's just an example of like how it's actually coming to fruition and actually where people are more open, I think, to have us at the table and have these conversations.
Right.
Because I think it's about finding those commonalities and understanding we all really want the same thing.
Because some of the resistance may come from the fact that these are, innovative programs, innovative ideas. Yeah. Right. So there's naturally that, I don't know.
Right. And Matt,
No, I mean, that you took my example. I don't have anything else. I'm just kidding. No, I think on my end, a lot of it is about, demystifying like what labor is. On my end, there's a lot of times where, we're in meetings with businesses or even collaborative efforts that we're like, hey, we're talking about a labor represented, occupation. Why is labor not at the table yet? Like I'll text Esme, I'll be like, did you know about this?
It should be a given.
Right. It should be a given in having that conversation. Actually met Ricardo, who's the lead of the labor chair of the Labor Council, secretary of the Labor Council. And, I met him on a flight up to Sacramento as my first 2 weeks on the job. And he was just like, yeah, we want to be involved at the beginning of the conversation instead of when these programs are, 10 months down the line and then you involve us. And then, labor they have a perspective, and so if this whole if the program that we're trying to build doesn't have the same perspective, I think every party has a right to be like, hey, like, I don't know, we should stop, we should replan this. So starting that conversation out with, demystifying, like, our labor partners, they have great programs, there's benefits for, your employees, workforce training, all those things are built into it. So for us, it's just about, bridging that conversation, especially when we're talking about programs that the end user is going to be a business and we're talking about something innovative. And a lot of times we're just remodeling the old labor kind of model that has been done for years and years and years and not really thinking through like, hey, could we learn from what you all are doing? Could we
So what
partner?
qualifies as labor? Like, what sectors fall under that labor category?
I'm going to say everything.
Yeah, because I'm like,
we're doing labor right now.
Think about it. Like,
because I'm like nursing. I know they're striking right now, but
home. When we're talking about home care, like, I mean, I just read this report about home care workers. Like, so the IE has an aging population that's going to probably double in the next maybe 10 years or so. All that to say, they're gonna need care, right? And our home care health workers make about $20 an hour.
Oh, wow.
But they're working these very long hours,
intense,
like very mentally, emotionally draining jobs. All of these things. So like, labor is everyone. We are in labor. Like, you as a worker here in the region, like the custodian, the administrator, even everyone is a worker and we all produce and provide to this ecosystem. We're all a part of this society together. And
I think the reason why I wanted to point that out is because a lot of times people think it's literally just physical labor that you ideate as like a warehouse worker, but it's literally everything.
It's teachers, our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, we're all protected and backed by someone, something, some system. Here we have, like I said, over 90 union affiliates. When we're talking about even IATSE, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about like our stage unions, right? The ones that produce these massive films in Hollywood, like all of these folks.
Or the massive raves in San Bernardino.
Woohoo! But all of that is just like our government employees, right? Teamsters, like our grocery store workers, UFCW, like, and I know I'm giving specific examples, and that's not to say that other unions that I'm not mentioning are not important. So sorry about that, but like
you can't mention everybody.
Yeah, but we exist everywhere. Everyone is but see, that's the thing. We do not just fight for union members. We fight for every worker, even if you're non-union, because you deserve to have a quality life and quality wages and to be able to thrive. Like, why not? Like, you're not less than, and you are deserving. And I feel like that's the message that we're trying to send to everybody. And we also want industry to come. Yes. Just, we just want everyone to be happy. Like, I think, and that's oversimplifying it, but that's at the
common
core.
goal, though.
The common goal, right? Every industry matters. You may have specialized needs, but that doesn't make it less equal to another.
Right. Because at the end of the day, like when someone, let's say is at an older age, they're not going to think back and they're going to say like, oh, I wish I would have, attended more business meetings and, gone to work more early. And no, they think about, man, I wish I would have spent more time with family. Man, I wish I would have taken that trip. Man, I would have liked to have more time to just relax or
just not stress out about money or paying for healthcare and everything in between. Yeah.
And it's so sad when you hear about people who are just so replaceable in their industry.
Right.
And when you think about that, it's literally everybody is replaceable, and that's how everyone is literally treated.
Yeah.
So
we shouldn't. We shouldn't. That should not be the standard. And that is what we're trying to change. The standard of working and living conditions here. Like, we need to change that.
I came across a stat on, I believe it was your guys' website, I could be mistaken, but it said something along the lines of 80% of union members that are represented are in the ages of 40 and over, but also minority individuals. Is there a specific reason for that, or in the Inland Empire, or is that something that we see nationwide?
I think maybe traditionally, like if we're looking at specific sectors, right, you can see older kind of generational, right? Because there is a notion among certain folks that, like, yes, being part of a union, it's because your grandfather, your mother, someone in your family kind of was a part of it, and that's how you got into it. And it's a certain trade also, right? So once you're in, right? So maybe that's where that stat comes from. But we're trying to also change that. We're trying to open these doors and these pathways and expand these apprenticeships, union-based, apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship pathways for everyone. Because our workforce here is younger, more racially diverse, but also more concentrated on low wage earning sectors here in the IE than anywhere else in California, right? And that's like written. And so for us, I think it's very important to know that these young folks need these opportunities and want to thrive.
So this is actually making me think about this. It's kind of a contentious question oftentimes, but just to sidestep a little bit in regards to wages between men and women, do you think that the gap is actually true, or a lot of people argue that it's because women tend to go into careers that are not as high paying jobs? So what's your guys' take on that?
No, I think it's true, because you have people within the same industry, within the same sector, within the same department.
And there's the pay gap.
And there's a pay gap.
Yeah.
So it's not because that person went for another position. We could both be project managers.
Yeah.
We could both have the same degree, same whatever, and still that, because I've experienced it.
And it's also the perception of the value of the work that you're doing.
And that's not going to change until we get people in leadership and decision-making positions. So in a nonprofit, you have a board, you have an executive director that make all of these decisions. So until we need women there. We need women in these leadership positions, or men who are very aware and socially inclined and
who
are
will call
willing
it out.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing to add on to that, yes, I completely agree with all of this. But the other thing to add on to this is over time. So women are also seen as, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to have a daughter, you're going to have a son, and you spent 9 months raising, going through that process. You spend a year on maternity leave, and then one of the other problems is you go back to work, and sometimes you go back, 3 years behind where you left. And so if someone has to start over every single time, that's also going to add on to that statistic too, which is also inequity, right? So that's also a huge problem that we have to look at as we start to move forward in our community. And America's unique in that and that the EU does things differently.
Completely interesting, because they want people to have babies, but then when women have the babies,
there's no support system to sustain them economically. And you say a year, I don't know anybody who's been able to take a year off. Yeah,
it's like 3 weeks, 6 weeks.
6 weeks if you're lucky. Yeah.
And if you want to have and also statistically, if you have a parent at home for 2 years, your kid's going to turn out a lot better. And we don't actually have that. We don't support that. Yeah. And that's also something that
and childcare is so expensive. A lot of times it's cheaper to stay home than to go and find a job and try to figure out how to pay for childcare.
And that's actually one of the barriers, like part of our report. So with California Jobs First, we kind of sponsored this report, right? That came out, and a lot of it addressed not only the barriers but also the strategies. Like, what do we need to tackle in order for people to be able to access these sectors that we are trying to bring and attract and grow
What are some of those sectors?
So the sectors were
advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, and clean technology.
Okay.
And so I mean those sectors, they're huge. They're kind of monoliths of all sorts of things. But what we also looked at was what sorts of investment have already happened here in the region. So we've heard sustainable logistics thrown around a lot. No one actually has defined exactly what that means.
Yeah.
It probably frustrates people even hearing that term, I'm sure.
Right. So what we did was we kind of had our best effort on like what, sustainable logistics is going to be clean technology, right? So looking at the billions and billions of dollars that have been invested, of course, clean technology is going to be number one. Also, the communities that are affected most by logistics and emissions are, disadvantaged communities.
Right.
Advanced manufacturing, because we want to build these parts. We want to build these types of, if automation is going to happen, like we talked about earlier, where are those people going to go, right? So producing that technology here and manufacturing it here. And then the last one, again, cybersecurity. And that's just because it's one of those things that every single industry is going to need it. There's an opportunity for ESME to work within that space, and it again we're uniquely qualified as a region, only region in the entire state that actually identified cybersecurity as a sector that we want to start producing more.
Right.
Wow.
So historically, with some of those sectors that you just mentioned, obviously one of the big universities in our area is Cal State San Bernardino, UC Riverside. Where are you seeing most of these graduates going after? Because I'm sure you kind of have an indication as to where these people are headed to after they're graduating in some of those sectors. Obviously, we want them to stay or bring some of those people back, but...
the obvious answer is a lot of them are going to jobs outside the region. That doesn't mean that they actually live outside the region. So there's outward migration that we're trying to combat too, especially if you have higher degrees. That's the issue that we're seeing. And I think the other point is if we don't have employers here that are requiring bachelor's and up qualifications, then as a kid, why would I go and get a degree? You would have to move away from your family. You would have to start over. All those things that you have to kind of put into the equation. And we are also, I don't know if there's a correlation between it, but we also have a very low bachelor's degree attainment rate, right? So in our region.
What's that percentage?
I believe it is around 17% last I checked.
Wow. And what is it nationwide?
I believe it's in the approximately 20s.
Gotcha.
20%.
Okay.
So it's still not high, but we're far below.
Yeah. And then I just want to, so that what Matt's talking about that talent export, right, that we have happening. So it's about, and I want to throw this number out there because it's kind of like, whoa, that's a lot of people. I think it's over 24%, so about a quarter of our workers are leaving. They go outside of the IE to work, to make ends meet, to bring back here, yes, but they have to leave. Why can't we employ them here? If we see these, I read some of these stats that are thrown out from these economic reports and stuff, and they're like, oh, we're doing great. Oh, we're doing great here. We're doing great. And I'm like, then why is our biggest export should not be the talent that we have here in the IE.
That keeps coming up.
Right.
We've talked to several people about their CTE programs and their continuing education programs, and that's one of the biggest challenges that they identify is that the talent leaves once they get to a certain level.
Right. And that's what I was talking about, closing that loop. It's like, yes, you can train and do all of these things, but you do it with certain people. You write these curriculums and these programs and all these things with certain people in the room, but you don't actually have industry in the room or the actual workers that are make up your workforce in the room that have hundreds of years of experience or talent that can share this knowledge, and that's what we're trying to combat is hey, let us in, let us help you so that you can close that loop, so that you can secure employment for them. Like, why not already have employers committed, signatories, contractors that can say, yes, I will employ a certain percentage, right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say community workforce agreements.
Right. So
Project
is that
labor
one of the
agreements.
specific strategies you have for retaining that?
Community benefits agreements. Yes, like why not?
You guys have been fighting for that for years, I feel like.
If we have these agreements in place, and they're not difficult. They're not these scary, oh my gosh, you're gonna come, and they're not. It's very simple. It's just a simple policy ordinance kind of agreement that you come to say, hey, we're going to hire 20% of the people that we are ourselves training.
Yeah.
So why do you think CBAs are so controversial?
Because I think it makes people's jobs harder. And that is reality. So I had one of my staff members go up to the Planning Association kind of convening up in Monterey Bay like 2 weeks ago. And, you have city planners here from the IE talking about, oh, yeah, we have this project coming up and we need to get community input and blah, blah, blah. So we're just going to send out a letter or something and just hope people respond. Right?
Performative then?
Which isn't going to
And it's like, well, why not have a town hall or a convening or a meeting and blah, blah. And it's like, well, that just makes it harder.
So they're trying to do the bare minimum.
These are very honest, because they're just human, right? They're, at the end of the day, they also just go in, they clock in, they have a job to do, right? And then they're trying to go home.
Yeah.
So I understand, but it's also like, well, if part of your job is to engage community, which yes, makes it harder because we lived through that and we are still going through that with California Jobs First, right? We have to engage community. We have to have certain people at the table, at this decision-making table. We don't ourselves like get to say, oh, these $20 million, we get to do whatever we want with them, right? And so it's just these agreements scare people because ultimately it could be ego. It could be, I don't want you coming in and telling me what to do. I get to make the decision. Or it could just be like, that will extend the process and will make it harder. So let's do away with this because we're trying to move quick and we don't want another month or two of this project being delayed.
And I think on the business side, and I don't know if there's been enough work done to actually explain what the benefits are on local hires, right? So, or even having a community kind of outreach program. There's some large corporations that do it and it may be performative, but they do it because they have the income to do it. And then I think on top of the CBAs, and then on top of CEQA, on top of all sorts of other things that you tack onto a business, that is on its own is kind of a barrier to entry, and even bridging that gap for the community, right? Because you already have you're messing with the state on, environmental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then on CEQA itself, there's also a community outreach program, a part of it, right? And that is, sometimes it's good. A lot of times it's very, it's conflicted.
Yeah.
There's lots of people who, they may not understand what the business is bringing in. Again, community outreach, community engagement.
Right.
And they see a big warehouse and they may not understand that they're producing airplanes in that warehouse, or they're producing drones, or some, an awesome technology that can employ lots of people. Right. They just see a big wall, which is the other kind of issue.
I always like when we see a company that is potentially impacting the environment, but then they go to like the local school next door and then they present a $10,000 check for supplies. It's like, here's your asthma, but then here's $10 of books and pencils for all you students here. We see that day in and day out. But I was thinking about a specific company, and don't have to say it by name, but was there ever a CBA, a community benefits agreement, for the one that's like most prevalent here in the Inland Empire? No. Gotcha.
There are plenty of community workforce agreements and PLAs and stuff like that, because our union affiliates are there. They're on the ground. They're talking to these local municipalities, our community college districts, our school boards, our, the city of Palm Springs just passed one, SBC USD, just passed one with, IBEW, etc. Like, these folks are doing work and they're getting in there and they're saying, like, look, the benefit is for local hire. It's like you train these people and you get to hire them, and they live, work, and they see their work when they're driving by. They're able to see the fruit of their labor, and that just builds morale. It just everything is good. It's just like an inverted, like, kind of like I earn money here and I spend it here, earn it, spend it, kind of, it stays here and stuff like that. So there are other agreements that are perfect examples, of what can be. I think, again, it's just people are afraid, and I think people are not educated enough. Businesses.
So how do you get the community to understand the value of those type of agreements versus the immediate benefit of a job? This place is opening. They've got 500 jobs. Hey, we can get hired there. How do you get them to understand the connection, the long-term effects?
You got to meet people where they're at. And that takes a lot. It's that door knocking. It's that organizing. It's about, yes, we held a 6 p.m. town hall, but not everyone can make it because people are just getting out of work. They're trying to make their food.
Feed the kids.
Food for the kids. Like, it's a lot. So it's just like, can I come to your house? Can I grab coffee with you? And that's why it's just like not on one and I'm not trying to downplay my worth or my value or anything. It's just like, I am insignificant because I am one person and I do what I can, but someone else can come and also support me. So now it's Matt and I, and then maybe you two, and maybe, our partners at the school district, and maybe it's our county officials and our local officials. It's really going to take everyone to reach and to go into those spaces and have those conversations and really teach people. And just to show that value.
And to make people aware of the support system that's out there.
I was also going to mention, since we're talking about, these jobs, since we're approaching the holiday season, I have been inundated with press releases. I actually have one pulled up right now that I received from a pretty prevalent, company that has a lot of warehouses, or corporation that has a lot of warehouses in our region, but, announces nearly 30,000 new seasonal roles across California, announced it's hiring for 250,000 full-time, part-time, and seasonal roles across the United States, which includes 30,000 positions in California. They're alleging, competitive pay, flexible schedules, opportunity to be part of their bustling retail industry at the busiest time of the year. What are people's general experiences like that, that take on roles like this? What are you hearing that their experiences are like in these sectors, especially when it comes to holiday temporary work?
That it's a prison.
And they'll use them as much as they can, and then when they're done, what
Right.
happens to the workers?
And I don't say that lightly, right? And I don't say that to really compare it to actual,
Right.
our folks that are incarcerated. But yes, people here are trying to make ends meet. If I had no other option, I would take a job like that because I need to feed my 3-year-old daughter
Yeah.
and pay rent. And I think that it's really disheartening when people don't have another option. I know people with master's degrees, bachelor's degrees that are working in these facilities and don't get breaks. They are given a quota and you have to meet that quota. You are standing on your feet for hours. You don't get lunch. You're hot.
Yeah, every summer, people are passing
Right.
out. I hear
Like,
stories like that often.
They develop these chronic diseases or long-term physical strains in their body because of the work. So yes, it might be, competitive pay compared to what? What is the standard that we have set? It is nothing.
Yeah.
Because the cost of living is going higher, rent is increasing, owning a house is increasing. All these things, the price for everything is going, but wages have been stagnant. Like, maybe they go up $1 or so, but that's meaningless. Like,
Yeah.
if you have multiple kids and stuff like that. So yes, like, their experience is not good, but they don't have a choice. They do not have a choice, and they need help. But they're stuck in this cycle, and it's just like, well, I need money, so I'm gonna go do what I have to do. It's about survival.
And when it's about survival, Matt, this makes me think of another question. So I was watching a YouTube video a few days ago about just nationwide people's satisfaction with their jobs, and they were stating that currently right now amongst a lot of political unrest and everything in between, that a lot of people are dissatisfied with their jobs but not leaving because they need stability, and they're nervous about what leaving might look like. What are we seeing in the Inland Empire when it comes to job satisfaction?
So as far as we see, and actually it's quite the opposite. So we're going to see, we've seen over 6,000 logistics jobs lost. So that's either people who aren't actually being employed there, that's them not hiring, all sorts of things. So, our largest employer, that's a huge loss in the region. I think it's actually more so in like the tens of thousands of jobs. And so we may see an uptake in those positions, but that's still a net neutral. Because those are seasonal jobs. So right after that holiday season, we're going to see a drop off, and then our unemployment rate's going to spike. As far as the longevity of jobs in our region, we're still seeing kind of the same sort of sectors that are not, they don't have, the attrition rate for those jobs are very low. So retail, logistics, restaurant, hospitality, those jobs typically don't keep someone around for a long period of time. But we're also seeing jobs that people have had for years and years and years. They're leaving too, but this isn't because they're not satisfied. This is because of federal cuts. This is because of state cuts. And so it's kind of hard to measure. It's kind of hard to measure, people who are leaving because of job satisfaction, because it's a kind of a relative statement. But in the long term, this region, we're growing right now, but it's all about how we're trying to grow these jobs.
Yeah.
Right, because you have to look at the long-term effects of these actions now.
Right, because we have a habit of the region, going after those short-term wins, and not thinking about the long-term gains, which is why regional kind of organizations are so important, because we have the opportunity, and I got this this idea from working for the state, was we could sit there. At the time I was at my house, so I got to sit in my home office and think through, like, what would it look like to have an economy that concentrated on X, which didn't happen when I was at the County of San Bernardino, because you're busy trying to get that next thing out. So having regional orgs really organize and strategize economic development or economic strategies makes a lot of sense, and especially how we we had to do it this way for California Jobs First, but I don't think I would have done it any differently, because we had the opportunity to create a really novel approach to economic development by going with bottoms up. So instead of having interviewing the CEO of X companies and the CEO of X county, really talking to people who are first affected by an economic downturn. So and it's actually really easy to talk through these things with them. And yes, there was some education that I had to have on communicating some of these larger topics. But at the end of the day, if my mom didn't understand what we were doing, or if my mom was affected by this, why wouldn't she have a say? Right. So, and I don't think any of our family members had a say in economic strategy for the past 30 years.
Right.
So have the tariffs that have been implemented this past year, have those affected the Inland Empire's economy? What's your take on that?
Yes. Yes, they have, but not in the way that, of course, prices are spiking. But what we're actually seeing is a long-term investment in logistics. That's the part that we're actually worried about. Because companies, they built their forecast for a year to 2 years to 3 years in advance. And hopefully no one's listening to this, but if you're not sure on what's going to happen in the next 6 months on if the tariff is going to be the tariff for your product, or the piece for your product is going to be 30% higher than it was the year before, then how could you actually say, I'm going to hire X employees, or I'm going to make X investment in real estate? So that's what we're seeing. Before the tariffs even happened, we were already seeing a downturn. We were seeing a lower rate of traffic through Long Beach and LA on an annual basis. So quarters we saw spikes, we saw things like that. But on an annual basis, we had seen a lower rate because of everything that has happened from COVID to now. And I think we were barely getting started on an economy that was working before we had we got into this next administration where we're kind of seeing how we can actually play.
So another very important and relevant topic, immigration. How is that going to affect and is affecting the Inland Empire? I know you're taking a deep breath there. It's a lot.
I mean, for us, it's we don't deal as much with workers, obviously, as Esme does. But what we are seeing is there is a lack of business investment. I mean, all of these things de-risk investment in the Inland Empire, because we have a large minority population of undocumented workers, right? So all of that de-risks our region that is already a risky investment for corporations. And so we are probably going to be hurt worse from this long term than I think we ever have, from anything else before.
So,
hey, just really quick, Matt, I was going to say, can you move your mic just more in front of your mouth? Yeah, cool. Perfect.
I mean, when the new federal administration, took the office, we already knew that something was coming, right? Like a wave, it was like pending doom almost. Like, so how do we prepare? How can we be proactive to try to support organizations, groups that are, on the ground? You have a lot of groups that care and that are actually working day to day with day laborers, with undocumented workers in the restaurant industry, right? The warehouse industry, truck drivers, etc., right? And yes, that comes to us because we're saying like, okay, how can we help them? If it's not financial resources, can it be trainings for community on what do you do when you see ICE, show up at your door? Like, how can you as an employer, protect your staff? Can we get community buy-in to just protect one another, call it out, video record, take pictures, verify? like sightings, right? You have this rapid response network that's working overtime to really share and make community aware of the dangers that be, you know. And it's really disheartening because people are afraid to live. They're afraid. They're afraid to go to work, but they have to go to work because if not, like, well, you know, how do I take care of my family? So they go to work, they go home, and that's it. They don't go to the grocery store anymore. They're not going out there and shopping anymore. They're not living normal lives because, you know, so what do we do as community? How do we show up as a worker organization? Like, how do we support our workers?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's what they are. They're just, how do we support our neighbor? I'm going to stop saying like workers, like they're just neighbors. Like, how do we support our neighbor? Like, can I go to the store for you and buy you groceries? You know, can we do a food train? Can I give you rides? Can I take your kids to school if you don't want to go? Like, can I help maybe find other employment for you if you don't want to travel so far? Like immigration does impact because they are the same. They're part of our economy. And if they're not spending as much, what are we going to see, you know, in revenue? If they're not, you know, earning, right? Like the loss of jobs, the loss of businesses. I mean, you see it in these diverse communities, right? And we see it here. And I feel like when we're talking about equity and we're talking about these, you know, issues, it's like we really have to understand, and I have to check myself a lot because it's like we have to really listen to the people who are closest to the pain, right? Like when we're talking about these things, it's like I might not be, because I am a citizen. Yes, I'm brown. Yes, you know, I'm also scared. Yes, I carry my passport with me. Yes, I try to protect my parents, etc. All these things, but like I am not undocumented myself, but I have friends that have been, that were affected, that didn't get their, you know, worker visas renewed, and were calling me to say like, can you help me? Can you write a letter for me? Can you tell my employer to give me some type of extension? What are my rights? And so it's just like having, and these are people that work for school districts, that work for the county, that work, and these institutions, these systems don't have anything in place for these types of situations. And so it's like, can we fight for better policies, more comprehensive policies to protect workers, you know, with mixed statuses, etc. Right? And so it's like we saw a big shift in many areas, and it's still not over, right? The conversations are still going. It's still very hard, and I think it's really, again, it's going to take all of us together to come up with some type of solution, because if not, like, I don't know how we're gonna make it through.
And I mean, you made a great point, because you know the actual national economy is actually built off of immigration, right? It's been the start from, you know, all sorts of ethnicities, and the California economy is, you know, we would not be the fourth largest GDP in the world without our immigrant population, our undocumented population. I mean, it's just a critical piece to us, and we, you know, I don't know a lot of people who are not upset about this whole process, even if they did vote the other way. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something that we will have to, this will be a long-term effect. This will have a long-term effect on how we do business here, whether it's in warehousing or in vineyards in Temecula, you know, or Walmart, you know, all sorts of industries are, you know, county, all sorts of places are affected by this that we did not think would be.
And are you guys seeing employers show up for their employees, or what is your experience at the ground level? Does it seem like there is somewhat of assistance being shown, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, I mean, you know, our program partner, the Labor Council, like we attend those, like, Know Your Rights kind of trainings and stuff like that. And people in the room are, classified staff here at Valley College. You have other nonprofit organizations. You have folks that work in hospitals, right? You have folks that work at Home Depot. They're managers and they're showing up there because they want to know. It's like, okay, how do I protect my folks? Like, what can I do? And how do I keep people safe? I think that was the biggest thing. It's like, okay, if they're going to come, they're going to take people up. It's like, how can we keep people safe without getting physically harmed or killed, right? In the process. And how do we keep families safe, children, right? So it's like school employees were showing up to get these trainings too, that I know. And they were saying like, okay, can we have a sign up at the door? Like, what do we do? Because they're trying to come in and they're trying to take people from, classroom students.
Yeah.
Yeah, so safety is the immediate concern, obviously, but then the economic impact starts to be felt after, the businesses are closing down because they can't sustain themselves because the owner's an immigrant and they're afraid to do business actively. So are you seeing more of that type of thing too?
Right, 100%. And it's just like, okay, and again, it's just like, what's the resolution? When is it going to stop? When is it going to be? And I think once it hurts the right pockets, I feel like that is when it will maybe ease up. Maybe.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side, there are a lot of businesses that don't know how to respond. There's some questions on what could happen to a business if they did respond. And so I don't think it's any fault to one individual for not taking action because you have to worry about
so
that.
I was
It's
going to ask.
unprecedented, so people don't know how to
I was
react.
going to ask, what are the implications of a business that hires an undocumented person, or how is that pay structure typically? What does that look like from the inner workings? Like, how are they able to do that legally? Are they held accountable for anything? What does all that look like?
You want I don't know how to say that. Like, some people, look the other way. Other people pay under the table. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think you're hitting on a great point too, and that is that there's undocumented folks that are still paying into Social Security. They're still paying income tax. They're still paying, even if you're renting, if you don't own, you're still paying property taxes. And so there's a large percentage of undocumented workers that are paying a huge piece of the GDP, paying a huge piece of the national budget. And again, like I'm not sure. There's probably business owners that do look the other way, and under the table, and then there's some that have falsified documents.
But they're also not reaping any of the benefits that they're paying into.
None of the benefits, right? So you go to the hospital and you don't have the benefits to that. You don't have your child still has to worry about going to school, all sorts of things. It's not a safe environment, and it's not easy. It's not easy to become a U.S. citizen.
So I teach some classes here, and I had a student who his parents self-deported, and he stayed for an extra month, but then he didn't have anywhere to live. So I can only imagine how many people that's happening to in regards to, well, my housing is gone now. And so it's a tough situation all the way around, from the workforce to housing to, the economy, and everything is really affected by it. So
even kids who are afraid to go to school, because they might come home and their parents aren't there, or parents who are afraid to take the little ones to school because they don't want to leave the house.
And it's because it's fear. Like it's being, these policies are instilling fear and true horror and harm into these communities that all people want to do is live and be happy. Like I think at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. And it's just like, so why can we not, move past this and maybe come up with more comprehensive policies that can help everyone while still, abiding by the law and blah, 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 whatever.
What do you think those policies should be?
If it were up to me, Manny, like, are you asking me like as a person?
How about as a labor institute, what policies would you like to see implemented to possibly help the workers and deal with these issues?
Oh, I would like other institutions and employers to take a look at their like HR policies for, folks that are on worker visa, that are DACA, et cetera, that for mixed statuses, so that there's something in place to protect them in case the federal administration doesn't renew on time or is prolonging their renewal application, whatever it may be, to give them some job security, to say, look, you know what, you're not getting it tomorrow, so take the next 3 months off, you get leave, when you come back your job will be here, right? Gotcha. It's just like policies like that think ahead and that are proactive, so that people aren't afraid to say, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to work right now, but I could take this time off and maybe figure it out, and I still get to come back to my job.
Right.
Like, where there's no loss, and then also like just the common practice of having trainings. If I was an undocumented employee at a facility, and my boss was putting on trainings on know your rights and, hey, if this happens, and teaching everyone, I would feel like, wow, they have my back. I'm protected. I'm safe here. I'm more comfortable here, right? Food drives, like things like that, like where people could show up for one another. I think those types of policies and practices are very essential and can really shift the work culture.
Got it.
I mean, on my end, I think there is something to be said on a benefit to companies. I'm not an expert on immigration laws, but having someone that's not from here work in your establishment, work to citizenship, right? So instead of having this issue where someone can work for you for 10 years and still not become a citizen of the United States while still being a productive member of society, I don't know how that could be. So working to your citizenship would be beneficial. And then I'm a strong proponent of not tearing things down, but also strengthening policies that we already have. So more money for courts, more money for security, to make sure that we're actually bringing in and vetting through these people. Questions on who's going to be in charge there, but making sure that that this process is not a 20, 30-year process that we've seen. It's a 10-year process. Someone who's been here for 10 years, that's fully vetted. If I can work a job for 6 months and I'm fully vetted to talk on a microphone, then I think that would be an actionable way to help a company and a person be productive, right?
And it comes back down to the core mission of what you guys are trying to do, being a worker-centered organization, because these are the new needs of the workers, many of the workers out there.
Right.
Is there any specific resources that you could shout out for, employers that they could potentially look into for their employees in regards to immigration?
I mean, they could stop by our office. We, some of my colleagues there, they're really leading the effort, and they have like printouts and folders and little booklets and signage that, people could pick up. Also, just Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice. You have the Pomona PEOC, Opportunity Center. Claudia is their ED. They do a lot of work with day laborers in our immigrant community. You have Luz, right, who also leads a lot of the work out in Coachella and here, like in Riverside, with her organization. There's a lot of folks that are out there on the ground, but they could visit our website and we could have resources. We have resources up for folks to be able to go and try to connect with these organizations who are focused on immigrant undocumented communities.
Yeah. And I wanted to also take a second to discuss the $600 million back in 2021. I believe that Governor Gavin Newsom had initiated for, better job quality and I think it's like climate resilience, and which has led to Thrive, which you guys are a part of Thrive. Can you guys sort of share what your guys' specific roles are within Thrive and how you guys are utilizing those funds to make an impact here in the Inland Empire?
Yeah. So Thrive it came out of the Community Economic Resilience Fund, now California Jobs First. So the basic program, and I was actually at the state when this was being written into law and all that stuff. But the basic premise is let's change economic development to be a bottoms-up approach, and that was kind of the thesis of how could we do this. And so from there, the state was broken into 3 different economic. Actually, it's regional investment initiatives. So the Inland Empire is probably one of those that makes the most sense since we share a lot of those benefits anyways. And then each region was granted $5 million out of that $600 million. And the $5 million was to do this regional study we've spoken about before, to really identify those competitive advantages, not just from a up top idea, but really looking at what do our community members need and want. And so, at the time, Esme was leading on the community kind of outreach sort of side. So she went through and spoke to, I was tracking, it's around 500 different unique individuals throughout the region. And so we produced the Thrive report, but through that time we had to create a table that kind of managed how we were doing this process. So we had 8 different committees. We had, over 150 different folks that were engaging in the process. We had a meeting a day to get this done for a year. And so that was the Thrive table. It produced the report that you can see on our website. It is thriveinlandsocal.org. And then from there, the state, out of that $600 million fund, granted out $14 million to each region again. And so that was for us to continue our work on engaging in moving these sectors forward that we identified. And again, it's advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, and clean technology. And also to grant out pre-development projects. So one of my conversations with state folks was, this is great. Like putting together a report is great, but also pre-development is where the money is that most people don't have. So that's projects that are kind of in that ideation phase. So let's say there's someone who wants to start a business but doesn't have a fiscal plan. You can use this. The idea was that you would be able to get a grant to do that work. And so we have been in the process of granting out $9 million to the region. We had 3 rounds of $3 million, and we're on our way to granting out that last bit.
Round 3, yeah. And so like Matt and I, so IEGO and the Inland Empire Labor Institute, we're the co-conveners for our region. And so that's our role. Again, this isn't, him and I decide, you get it, you don't kind of thing. It's about true, community engagement and having people at the table that have historically been marginalized and not at the table. Like no one knows how economic development really works, or these business, propositions happen. Do they happen in a dark corner somewhere? Where, and so it's I think our goal was to really make it open and inclusive, a true approach to inclusive economic development, inclusive community economic development would be, what we were our North Star, right? To truly get people to the table and really invest in projects and in people that may otherwise not be looked at or considered, right? And it's really identifying, I think, through our report, the sectors that we've been mentioning and kind of the barriers and things like that to give people kind of a pathway and hopefully buy-in from local officials, our cities, our counties to say, hey, this is something to consider, right? So that we can be at par with other folks.
Yeah.
So ultimately, in the next 5-10 years, what would you be most interested in seeing or most satisfied in seeing in the region?
I would say that I would want to see actual companies that align with these sectors here. It would be so cool to drive into cities and see not massive warehouses, but like you know, I don't know, like for tech and stuff, for green tech, like advanced manufacturing, like these corporations that are doing or leading the effort in sustainability here, you know, and our graduates going there, right? Pathways being built with our unions there, you know, like I think that's what I would want to see. And I would want to see these warehouses maybe repurposed to align with those goals.
You mentioned pathways, and you know, CTE programs tend to seem as a pathway oftentimes, but what challenges are you seeing in regards to CTE programs in our area?
That people aren't getting employed. There might be some. I'm not saying that all graduates of these apprenticeships or CTE programs are not getting employed, but I'm saying a lot of them are not getting employment. A large number are kind of, I think, especially if they go the private route, right, to a private school, you know, that it's predatory almost. But even within our own school systems, our public school systems, our higher education, like they're not getting employed in the path that they should be, right? Or they are getting employed, but they're not stable jobs, sustainable jobs with, you know, those standards that I mentioned, like mortgage sustaining wages and benefits and things like that, right? So it's just like we would rather have people fully aware of all their options. Like I said, educated on, hey, you can do a program, but you could do it through this route and it could lead you here, right? Like where there's actual growth and opportunity and actual like an end goal, right? So that we can close that loop.
So what do you recommend?
Sorry.
I mean, well, on the CT programs, I think the other piece, again, having employer at the end, but we're talking about kind of two different types of programs. So there's like 4 credit, which is there typically is an employer at the end. They use different types of funding to take on that, whether it's a state grants or different types of state grants. And then there's other CT programs that take 3 years to make. So if you're thinking about how fast a business changes their process, I think even our community colleges who are producing great workers, we have actually the top in the state, the benchmark programs for workforce training here in the Inland Empire. I think the other problem is that in our state, in education, it takes so long to make one of these programs because there's so much paperwork and there's a process to get it done that we're not actually being armed to do this work the way that we should be doing it. So I think that's the other kind of barrier. So not that community colleges aren't doing aren't doing like what they need to do, or that CT programs are defunct and we kind of need to go to a different route. I think there's a different route for all of these types of trainings. I don't like using the phrase pathways because it's, you know, I didn't have a pathway to become an economic developer. I don't think a lot of people had pathways to get to their job, but being able to produce workers for a myriad of different types of sectors. And so really looking at the 3-year program at the state, a policy change potentially. The other route is also looking at not training for a job, but training for skills. So curriculum and education is not really created for that, right? So you're creating kind of a testable education. And so that's the other piece that we kind of have to think through as we're starting to build an economy for the future and building a workforce training program for the future, is looking at those skills and how do you develop that? How do you train for that? And how do you test for that? Because those are all metrics that, and I'm a big fan of metrics because you need them. Because as a taxpayer, you have to make sure that what we're producing, what we're actually funding, is actually gonna work.
Yeah.
And
it's still relatively new, CTE programs for the most part.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. And so those are all kind of the myriad of issues as we're starting to see this new economy kind of grow. And like you said, it's new, but there are jobs that didn't exist when I graduated high school, which was 10 years ago, right? So that's a crazy thing.
Yeah, and so we need to keep up with the ever-changing, obviously the labor market landscape, right? And you see that the state is moving to like no degree requirements, right?
Yeah, it's like, why 10 years ago was it you needed a master's degree for every entry-level job?
Right.
And then that thing, I mean, we all know those job posts that go, viral on LinkedIn. And it's like, even today, you see some that are like, master's degree required, $16 an hour full time. And we're like, wait, what? Who with a master's degree is willing to go through that whole process? Unless, as you guys mentioned, unless it's someone who is really like desperate for the job essentially and trying to make ends meet. So
we're trying to, and I think that's why we need to have these conversations with the folks in education, with industry, with our our labor partners, with state policymakers together to say like, look, this is where the gaps are, and we need to fill the gaps in these places.
And there's a lot of gaps right now, it sounds like.
Which is actually so the state actually took on a role. It's the master plan for career education. So that's where that no skill or the skills kind of gap training or employment is that conversation came from. But the other piece is looking at how we're actually training students for, again, skills, cross-sectorial. One thing that we have seen through working with industry is, there's companies who are in electric vehicle manufacturing, and they're talking through the types of training that they need. And we go, well, that's an electrician. That's not an electric vehicle engineer.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, even identifying what types of careers students could be getting from these programs is the other thing too. So like as you build out CT programs, you're not just building out a career for an HVAC technician. You could be building out that they could go and take their skills somewhere else. Again, economic development. I got my degree in finance. So, you can actually take those skills and go somewhere else and not have to actually have this person trained for this job.
Yeah, because we saw a huge allocation of funds for CTE programs.
Right.
But really, basically kind of what you're saying is that it comes down to adaptability of skills.
Right, exactly. And that's going to be the critical piece as we start to look forward, look into the future. Because we are seeing things produced in a completely different way than we had for the past 100 years. I mean, AI, it came out 2 years ago. I now use it for a ton of emails. I would have never thought I would have done that.
I went back to look at when I started my ChatGPT subscription. That started in July 2023.
Right.
I'm like, that. I can't believe it's already been 2 years. And that's still such a new sort of resource there, a tool.
Right.
So it's crazy to see how much more it's going to change in the next months, in the next years.
And in ChatGPT world, it's 5 years old.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's the 5th version.
I was going to mention, because we're talking about, adaptability when it comes to skills. How is that going to affect our older population? People that are maybe 50s, 60s, and 70s, obviously, especially when people are having to work longer. And also when they're adapting, that's not easy for somebody to do at 65 years old.
So there's it's a twofold. So we're also seeing the gray tsunami I'm a millennial, and so I've heard this since I've graduated college. We're not only seeing workers on that end, but also employers. So really seeing how, and the sector that I think comes to mind most is the manufacturing sector, where these companies have been around, legacy companies. These business owners may not have a child that wants to take over this, or they may not have a way to keep this company here.
Right.
And they may not even want to anymore because they don't know how to function in this new kind of industry, because things have been changing quite rapidly for manufacturing. And so as we're starting to see that some of our work is putting together like succession planning. How do you actually plan for the future of your company? I spoke to an attorney, not for myself, but for just research, on succession planning, and that should be a one-time look at you should look at that document once and then put it away, and then you have a plan. And so that's something that we're actually gearing up for on our side, to make sure that when we're starting to push these types of industries forward, that we actually have a future up for them. And that's, there's a worker kind of conversation there, because one of those key parts of it is ESOPs for manufacturing. So having a worker-owned manufacturing facility, which is not uncommon, and it's actually pretty bipartisanly supported, which is odd. It's really a co-op, but it's also an investment tool to help. These workers they own the company, they work at the company, and especially for workers who've been at companies and we're seeing this in manufacturing, that's one of those sectors that has a low attrition rate. People have been there for 20 years. They should be able to know how to run this company.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, to that point, so on our end with the Labor Institute, we actually took a look at that, because a lot of, you mentioned it yourself, like within unions, right? A large percentage are older, and these industries and facilities, with the push to green jobs, etc., climate efficiency, work, people need to be reskilled, right? Or they need to be able to move to another sector because their refinery's closing, right? No. We see that happening. We see layoffs happening. We see all of this. So it's like, for us on our end, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we train all of these folks in just other types of skills to either, one, be proactive so that they're able to maintain their current job, so that their employer doesn't come and say, well, you don't know how to use Excel with AI companion and blah, 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 blah. Like, so we could teach them those skills, but also it's just like, if folks are experiencing layoffs, it's like, okay, well, we could help you, one, build your resume, do the interview process, things like that. Those simple things that will help them, and also find innovative ways. I know he mentioned ESOPs, but yes, like he said, it is a co-op. Like, so for us, it's union-based co-ops, right? And so we have, that's part of the work that we're also doing. Our pilot program is the co-ops. It's like finding potential companies or small businesses or areas here in our region that can potentially become a co-op, right? So you have Slow Bloom Coffee, right, in Redlands. You also have, I've also been in conversation with the Garcia Center for the Arts, right? Michael, like, doing great work out there with the Mercado, right, that they have. It's like turning that, it's being ran like a co-op, basically. And it's just like, okay, how can we put financial resources behind you to actually support that work? Right? So that's another, and then Future First Film Media, like, they were at the Inland Film Festival. But with Future First, it's like, okay, they're also trying to, get their articles of incorporation in play and things like that. And so what we're trying to do is come up with an actual program itself and model to be able to fund where we could get more interest on co-ops. Like, why are people not thinking about co-ops as a solution? Because it really can be a solution to basically every issue that we talk about. Right. And it has been proven. Like, UCR does a great work, like their Undocumented Student Center. They just had a co-op from Santa Ana come and present, like, as an opportunity for undocumented students to be able to work, right? So it's just like basically just trying to find innovative solutions to the issues that you're bringing up, like an aging worker population, a changing economic, but also climate change, right? Like the impact on industry here in California, etc. So
making me think of a conversation. I talked to my mom on the phone yesterday, and she's like, we got trained on a new system today. Long story short, she said her day went bad. And then when I was hanging up, I was like, well, I'm glad your day just went bad and not real bad. But it just goes to show that like our parents are also facing these changes in the workforce too. And having that goes back to always having to re-up on your skills. And that's stuff that we are constantly having to do, even in the news, journalism, publication space. That's constantly changing and shifting, and it's all digital nowadays.
Right.
I mean, for God's sakes, we're in front of a microphone right now instead of being just behind a computer typing and writing a story.
Right.
So I mean, every sort of sector is just ever changing and ever evolving. And I think one thing that's important is just for people to not get too comfortable in any field that you're in, just because things change. So
Right.
Yeah. Everything's changing right now, so we have to change as workers, and kind of adjust. And there's an uncertainty too.
Adapt to this.
But also that there's support for them.
yes,
For you, for us, like there's support. We have a community, our organizations here to support them, and as this changes, as things change, as we have to learn to evolve and adapt.
Yeah.
Man, so where can they reach you? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say also workforce development boards too. I know we haven't talked a lot about the partnerships, but when we're talking about workforce training, aging populations, workforce development boards, they have funding federally that is actually set to that type of training. That they can stand it up, they can help produce it. So if you have any folks that have like a density of people that need that training, I would recommend just giving them a call and seeing how they can help too.
So what specifically? Where would you specifically?
So workforce development boards have AJCCs, which are federally funded centers. So there's one in San Bernardino, actually at the Inland Center, for job seekers, right? So they're in areas.
Is it the county building?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yep.
The San Bernardino County.
Got it.
And then Riverside has the same. So they have AJCCs in various locations throughout the counties.
I was going to add too, we've talked about the opportunities in regards to the economy, but what are some of the challenges that we can expect down the line looking into the 2026?
So 2026, it's hard to forecast, especially right now. I think a couple years ago I would have been able to, but I think there are going to be changes in manufacturing. What we're seeing is manufacturing is getting leaner, it's getting greener. The unfortunate side to that is, number one, the good side is manufacturers can be more profitable, which means they can grow more. They can take on different types of employment. The other side is that the entry level positions probably are not going to be something that you're going to see as often. I think that's going to be something that you're going to see throughout, a lot of industries, because that can be, done through AI. The other area that we would probably want to keep our eyes on is logistics. It's not that I'm very against the industry. You can have your opinions about it. It's still an important piece of our economy. But with that being said, I think there is going to be some struggles there moving forward, whether that's on the employment side, the goods movement side, or even just how policies from our state, from Sacramento, how that's going to affect how goods movement is going to happen to our federal side on the tariffs. Gotcha. And so that's going to be something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. I've mentioned this before on other things, that we have a global economy here in the Inland Empire. It's hard to imagine because we're such a small town region, but we're truly affected in ways that Northern and Central Californians aren't in how the globe trades. And so we saw that during COVID. Fortunately for us, we saw an increase in logistics because that was critical for the entire country. But as we start to see these foreign policy makers kind of make those decisions, we're going to be affected. And so it all depends on where we're at 6 months from now or a year from now on what the policies are on foreign trade and who we're actually trading with.
Got it.
Right.
And before Denise, and then you'll take the last question, which is, I think, just for them to shout out like their socials and websites or whatnot. But I was going to ask, before we get to that, just one last thing is, in regards to, the job market, when it comes to just labor in the future, what is one thing that you want people in our region to know to prepare themselves or to protect themselves? And when it comes to you, same question, but in relation to the economy.
Oof.
I think for me, as far as the economy goes and as far as industry or employers go, I think, and this may actually kind of work within the worker side too, but knowledge is key. So really be knowledgeable about what types of support there are, especially for our region. So the state has incentives for companies. Knowing who to talk to when you're trying to invest in a community. You can come talk to me. You can come talk to like the local economic developer or the county economic development departments. And then also looking at, for the economy moving forward, hoping that this is only going to be a blip, and that sometimes everything on the news that we're hearing, it may not actually be exactly what's happening on the ground. So I would say, for companies, keep investing in our region. We're the fastest growing region in California. My goal, and I think a lot of people in my kind of sector, in my industry's goals, are really just to move that investment into a specific area, working with Esme here to make sure that when we are working towards the new economy for our region, that it is community focused and worker centered. And I think lastly, it's just, continuing to have this coordinated effort. What I have seen in the past 2 years is really inspiring on an Inland Empire level. So, there's not often that I'm on calls that it's just me and someone else. Usually it's me, it's someone from UCR, it's someone's aunt. I'm just kidding. It's, it's a business, it's a chamber, it's labor at the table. And so continuing this coordination on like the service provider level is critical, because there are going to be times where we're not going to get resources. And when we don't get resources, that means that we're all going to be chasing after the same thing. And so not having that starvation kind of mode and continuing to kind of work and kind of chisel away at what we're all trying to do, which is having a thriving Inland Empire. Yeah.
I had to really think about that one because I want to be very intentional. But I would say that there's help to know that the path that you're on, your journey, that no matter what, like that there is support and people willing to help you reach the goals that you have. So as a worker here, there's already enough outside noise, right, that impact the everyday lives of people, right? The struggle. Right. And so we don't want to add to that, but we want to alleviate some of that. So I think you can't do everything on your own. There is technical assistance support. If you need a new skill, if you need to learn how to do a resume, where to even look for jobs, how to even talk to, if you want to get connected, an intern or do something like that. There is assistance for you. If not us, like we will find a partner that will walk you through that process, because what we want to see ultimately is every person, every worker here, every resident to be successful. Like, because we will not have a thriving region if people are still hurting and suffering, right? Cannot pay rent, do not have food to eat, there's housing insecurity, etc. So we want to be sure to tackle those barriers together in like what Matt said, in a coordinated manner. And with that, like, we are trying to build this ecosystem for folks to be able to be successful, right? Like, so that there is support, like that people are not alone, that they don't have to go at this alone if they're a recent grad or they're about to graduate and they don't know where to go or what to do and they need that help. Like, I think for me, growing up, I was kind of scared to ask for help. Like, I wasn't sure. Like, I wanted to just be a tough girl and like show that I could do it on my own, right? But it really took a lot of trial and error to discover that I do need to tap into my network and build that support system, that village around me, so that I can reach, you know, the level of success that I want and provide for my family, etc. So I just want people to know, like, that there's coordinated efforts happening and that there is support, and it might be hard, though. People don't know where to look. And so they could always just reach out to us, and we're more than happy to.
So with that said, thank you both for all your time. So much information here, and we probably barely scratched the surface, but for those who do want more information and who do want to learn how to access those resources, where can they find you?
Right. So for the Inland Empire Labor Institute, they could go to our website, laborinstitute.org. They could call my cell phone, 951-329-7225. That's my work phone, y'all.
You're very accessible.
Don't worry. But also, we're on all social media. So Instagram is at IE Labor Institute, LinkedIn, and I think we have a YouTube channel maybe that Alicia set up for us. She's my comms person, so shout out to Alicia.
Don't be surprised if you get a random call next Tuesday at like 8 p.m. Hey, so what are you doing? No, I'm joking.
Facebook, they could reach us out. But IE Labor Institute, that's where we're at. And if people reach out, you know, obviously we'll connect them to the partners if we can't support someone who can.
Perfect.
Dang, Esme. Okay, well,
What's your number?
I know. You can get the information for IEGO at iegocollab.org. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, same thing, IEGO Collab, and then Instagram as well. You can also give me a call at 951-505-1003.
Yeah. And obviously today's conversation, obviously on the economy and the job force, what is one of your, just to end it on a light note, what is one small business that is each of your guys' favorite? What's small IE business that you would like to shout out?
Just one?
Just one. It could be two if you need to do two. What should we check out?
So there is one company that I think both of us work with fairly closely, and they're really enthusiastic about being here. The company is called Rivet. They are manufacturing electric motorcycles. They're located in San Bernardino. They're really invested in the community. They're invested in what Esme is doing. They kind of hit all those marks. They're a unicorn company. And so that's one of those companies that I'm really, actively trying to help. We are really invested in their growth here. But yeah, so that's
where are they located? What city?
The city of San Bernardino. So that on top of everything else kind of adds to the story.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dang, I think I mean, there's so many. So I'm a coffee connoisseur.
Yeah.
So coffee shops are my thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I know I mentioned Slow Bloom because they're co-op. But there's one on East Street. It used to be Snack.
985.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of.
So, I mean, I go there for business meetings. People are like, where are you taking me?
We tried going a few weeks ago and there was no seats, which is a great problem to have.
So, but there's other coffee shops, obviously, in Riverside Mundial. You have Molinos.
Molinos is my go-to. They have their cold brew. Their ice cubes is made of cold brew, which I'm like, that's worth the price of the coffee.
Right.
So obviously, but also Baker's. That's a staple.
Okay.
Because Baker's is bomb.
What about you? Do you have one?
I was thinking of 985 actually, and you said that banana matcha is just Mine.
I have to shout out Tony's, which is really close to here. Their chili relleno burritos are fire.
That's so bomb.
Completely. And I think because I'm starving right now, and that's why I want to shout them out. So, but guys, thank you so much for joining us. This conversation, just so you guys know, this is our longest podcast we've ever done. It's been like an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We usually
about
shoot
that.
like an hour.
That's what I'm saying, and there's still more.
Still stuff that we didn't get to ask that I know we didn't get to ask. But I appreciate you guys taking your time on a Friday. If you're watching this, it is currently a Friday while we're shooting this, but or if you're listening. But Esme, thank you so much. And Matt, thank you guys very much for joining us. And Inland Empire, wherever you are at, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. My name is Manny.
I'm Denise.
And we will see you all next time.
Bye.